I've played Space Age for more than 3 years now, starting from the very alpha builds through beta test to at the end enjoy the current Polish stage. And during this time I did a few mistakes. Oh no, fuck! Since I want you to have smoother experience than me, there is a list of 13 things I wish I knew before playing Space Age myself. The list is not in any particular order, because I just put everything here which I thought might be useful for you. So without any glebbing around, let's start from Nauvis. When I played Space Age for the first time, I spent like 20 hours just on Nauvis. I was expanding my spaghetti, changing design, researching stuff and so on, only to realize after I landed on Vulcanus, I experienced resources inflation, since you can literally print plates on Vulcanus like Federal Reserves print money. What's more, Fulgora will change your perspective on circuits thanks to scrap processing and electromagnetic plants. So at that point, Nauvis looks like Zimbabwe with hyperinflation where everything is worthless. That's why you shouldn't overstay on Nauvis and instead build a base just big enough to fund the space exploration. Otherwise, you will end up rebuilding everything with new, more efficient machines. The big choice after building a Nauvis factory is to choose your next destination. You can either go to Vulcanus or Fulgora. Both options are very good, but it's still good to prepare for whatever option you pick, since starting from scratch on a new planet is very challenging, and simply I don't recommend it, unless you like suffering for breakfast. That's why good power armor is a must-have. Extra legs will speed up the exploration.
100 leg?
100 leg, that's up here.
Alright, well, I've...
In hell.
And personal roboports allow you to kickstart some beginning blueprints. You of course should take advantage of Nauvis production and bring starting materials for your first trip on a new planet, like construction and logistic bots, roboports, all kinds of circuits, rough plates, rocket parts, inserters, assemblers and so on. The more stuff you take, the easier and faster it will be to start a new planet. Here is a rough list of all items you might need for the first landing. You don't need all of them, but it's usually good to take too much rather than not enough. Also, you should check the material's weight, because some items like bots are better to be taken in parts. Since by taking robot frames with circuits, you can load up almost 3 times as many bots as you would get by taking bots themselves, and crafting time for those is not a problem. By the way, you don't need to take everything at once. As long as your ship doesn't suck and can make round trips, you can order more stuff from Nauvis. As you travel to older planets, your existing factories still work, but also biters, worms and glebasters. To not get your whole base taken down by neighbors, you should prepare them a very warm welcome. Good defense is a must-have for Nauvis and Gleba. What exact weapon you choose is up to you. You can use classic weapons like turrets, mines and flamethrowers, but the DLC gives you access to rocket launchers, Tesla turrets and railguns. Whatever your choice, it's always good to have an ammo buffer. And if you want to be extra safe, hook it up to a speaker with circuits and make it sound whenever you're low on democracy stockpile. Keep in mind, it's easy to import any weapon with spaceships, but like Sanzi said, relying on imports bring weakness to your defenses. Yeah, whenever possible, just craft it on the planet to always be safe and not rely on transport. Factorio 2.0 also introduced remote driving, so having one or few tanks on each planet can be very helpful to clean up unwanted natives or to bring support when needed. In the late game, you can replace tanks with spider boys and spread remote democracy even quicker. In the Space Age, you have to constantly juggle between multiple planets, and to make this task easier, you should simply build self-sustaining planets. That means no temporary solution, no hand-feeding, and spaghetti in manageable amounts. Because there is nothing worse than finally having fun while glebbing to suddenly hear alerts going ballistic and see Nauvis in the middle of burnout because you forgot to hand-feed more fuel to nuclear boilers. Never happened to me. Fixing your own problems from a few hours ago is the core gameplay loop of Factorio, but it's good to know ahead of time what you will need to fix. When it comes to the most common headaches in Factorio, those are expanding pipes outside the limit with bots to see all your fluids stuck 6 hours later, running out of ore patches, which is especially painful when it's your power generating resource, having your refinery liquid stuck due to not watching my oil tutorial and probably not building enough cracking. Logistic bots running out of storage space, too many rocks on Vulcanus. Yes, it can happen. Having the whole Aquilo turned into Siberia with lack of heating, hearing your spaceship get destroyed because you said something wrong, and so on. Also anything and everything on Gleba, but especially not enough fruits, too much fruits, pollution, walking Glebuster, hatching eggs, lack of power, too much power, spoilage, cliffs performance, and other bullshits beyond your comprehension. What was I? Most problems you can easily fix with a remote view. Even hand feeding can be done remotely now. So on each planet make a solid bots network, mall for building stuff, and power plant which can sustain a nice looking factory. When I was playing Space Age for the first 2-3 times, most of my spaceships were hand operated. You know, to make sure they have enough ammo, fuel, and there is actually stuff to pick up on the planet. However, this is the most stupid way to manage ships. Yes, it works as a temporary solution, but unless you speedrun the game, there is no point in using temporary solutions. Too much. That's why you should design your spaceship with automation in mind. When building a ship, make sure to have enough production of fuel and bullets, instead of buffering them at each step. While designing a ship, you have to take into account the fact that flying ships encounter extra space rocks and need extra production. If you don't respect it, then your designs will be like my first spaceships, which needed 30 minutes of reload time at each stop, so they were as convenient as USA public transport. Also, resources in space are free, so you are not wasting any resources with constant trips back and forth. Talking about designs, you should design your spaghetti like an excellent Italian cook. In the Space Age, you have to build the whole factory from scratch basically 5 times, you know, once on every single planet. And even so, each planet brings a unique experience. Some parts are basically the same. For example, the oil refinery on Nauvis is different from the one on Vulcanus. However, they still share the same design for oil cracking. So if you watch my oil video or you design a good cracking blueprint by yourself on Nauvis, you can easily reuse it on Vulcanus. The same principle works for smelting columns, construction malls, trains, and many more. That's why it's important to come up with good designs from the very beginning, since it will pay off in the long run, and the Space Age is a long run. Quality was one of the most loved or hated mechanics added in the Space Age. On one hand, it gave us awesome late game machines, but on the other hand, it messes with recipe consistency, which makes it impossible to keep perfect ratios in production. Whatever you think about quality, you should still use it to upgrade your factory production, spaceship's performance, and to make negotiations with biters easier. If you are afraid of quality, just don't. Quality is awesome, especially for power armor and equipment, because when you go to another planet, you are limited by your spaceship storage and your rockets production, while your armor can be as good as you want. With better armor, you can bring better legs for exploration, roboports with more charging spots to make a starting base in no time, or laser turrets to the Gleba. However, the chance to craft a quality product from scratch is slightly better than you getting a reply from your crash, so the chance here is slightly above 0%. That's why you should use quality ingredients to craft quality stuff. The simplest way is to put quality modules to machines which make ingredients, like circuits and plates. Then you build a splitter filtering quality products to a chest, which will clog up at some point, blocking the production. So you should use an active provider which will be automatically emptied by bots and clog up the whole network. Right. It's a temporary design to kickstart the quality grind, because with quality circuit you can make quality modules with higher quality chances to get better quality modules, and high quality modules are the first quality things you should craft for a quality gameplay. Later on it's usually better to just make recycling loops, which will constantly recraft low quality items into better ones and keep the good one. But keep in mind that recrafting stuff like mech armor or nuclear reactor will take a lot of resources, so get prepared for that and make sure your base can sustain it. Put some limits on designated quality and just wait for an automated gambling. Also keep in mind that quality modules slow down the production, so it might be tempting to build few speed beacons to rush the process. However, rushing the process will result in a lower quality product, so don't use speed modules while trying to get quality, unless you know what you are doing. You can beat the whole space age without using circuits at all. However, understanding them can make the whole experience way smoother. For example, the coverage processing requires 40 light uranium to work, but the inserters will input an extra 70 in the buffer, slowing the whole coverage down. On the other hand, you can set a simple logic to make inserter work only if there is less than 40 uranium inside the centrifuge, allowing other centrifuges to also process uranium. You can set the circuit logic to basically everything, and like make steam power work only if your accumulators are low on power. Adjust the amount of bots in the network, dynamically request materials from space, make a science tracker to spot bottlenecks, or worship a dog if you are a furry. All of this is not needed for progression, and in many cases the circuit logic makes you over-engineer a lot of things. Like this is my over-engineered Gleba production, which tracks belt saturation, adjusts the nutrient supply based on the demand, limit the resources spoilage, but it doesn't war, and I should burn this planet in the heating tower instead. Yeah, if you're into late game mega bases and want to optimize the crap out of this game, then learning circuits is the way to go. They are kind of like a feature which makes Factorio easy to play but hard to master, because you don't need them, but if you understand the circuits you can do stuff. Logistic groups in Factorio are the kind of feature you didn't know you needed until you use them, and suddenly you cannot imagine playing without them. Before it, you had to set up requests by hand in every game, and setting up the requests for belts, inserters and assemblers every single time might get annoying. But with logistic groups you can save them as blueprints in, for example, a requester chest, and when you place the requester chest blueprint you will get access to all the groups you've set up. Yeah, you can reuse a logistic group in your inventory, requester chests, spider drones and even constant combinators, which unlocks your ability to connect your inventory directly with circuit network. So smart people can do stuff like automated train requests based on your inventory status. The groups are especially useful in multiplayer, where one homie can set up a logistic groups for the whole neighborhood. For example, can update the basic group of belts, inserters and bullets for higher tiers for everybody, whenever your team unlock those. But with the great power of sharing a logistic group comes great responsibility of keeping it clean. However, the history feature listing all the changes to the group should make spotting a logistic troll simple and easy, so his execution can be efficient. Anything to say?
I regret nothing, you sick fuck.
Another awesome feature of groups is the fact that you can put a blueprint into a group slot and it will automatically turn all the items from blueprint into a request. It's such a great feature for building outposts. While train groups might sound like the same feature as logistic groups, they are not. With train groups you can set up the same logic for multiple trains at the same time, making management of your trains a very complicated thing in the beginning, but extremely simple if done correctly. Because you can literally make a group of transport trains which will take any item from a loading station, and based on the cargo content they will go to a station demanding it. You don't need to set up every single train by hand, because the train group will handle it for you. Of course, as long as you set it up correctly, and I'm not gonna explain to you how to do it, because it will take me too much time. But if you want to see an ultimate tutorial about trains, just let me know. Also, in Factorio 2.0 there are train interruptions, which adds even more to the complexity of train groups. However, a simple train interruption, making it go to the refueling station whenever fuel gets low, is a smooth brain easy. In the space age, every planet has its own broken and unique crafter. They usually provide increased productivity and have tons of module slots, which you can use to further increase productivity, power efficiency and speed. On Vulcanus, you get access to an incredibly efficient foundries, which simply print the plates. With Fulgora's electromagnetic plants, anything related to electricity gets made quicker and with 50% productivity bonus. What's more, you also get recyclers to gamble your items for better quality. It's like loot boxes, but instead of losing money, you lose plates, circuits and even friends. Cryogenic plants from Aquilo can be used in your refiners, making stuff like batteries, plastic, sulfur and so on. They are also slightly bigger than chemical plants, but craft faster. I mean, all of those machines are bigger, which can bring a lot of headache to replace old crafters with new ones. That's why you don't make a mistake like I did in my first game and always keep enough space between your machines. It will make replacement an easy operation. For example, this Red Circuits factory required 13 tiles of space and my upgraded version takes 19 tiles. So if you haven't left at least 6 tiles of space around, you cannot simply replace old assemblers with electromagnetic plants, and you might need to tear down the whole base just for this upgrade. Last and of course very least is Gleba with its biochamber. It can do only oil cracking, rocket fuel and some nutrient stuff. However, instead of consuming electricity, they consume nutrients, and providing them with it is a pain in the neck. So biochambers are basically useless outside of Gleba. If you played enough Space Age, you for sure experienced your ship getting destroyed. It might have been some small oversight while building the ship, or while setting up the logic, but most likely it was a skill issue. Since you cannot transfer items between ships, there is no way to save a ship which is highly damaged. Like if all of your space grabbers get destroyed, you lose the only ability to produce stuff. That's why you should always bring a backup, so you can easily replace broken parts and save the ship. To easily do it, you should set up a logistic group for the most common spaceship parts, stuff like grabbers, inserters, belts, extra platforms and so on. It will make sure you always have spare parts to work with, and keeping them in a logistic group will make managing all the ships easier. If you want to be extra safe, you should also bring spare rough resources like circuits and plates. This way you can always place an assembling machines next to a platform hub and craft whatever is in need. Just remember to bring the assembling machine itself. By the way, you should update the backup list with new quality machines when you start using those on spaceships. Okay, I know I talk a lot of trash about Gleba, and let's be real, Gleba deserves the hate. It's a planet made of spoilage, glebusters and pure emotional damage. But there is one thing devs did to balance the pain, and that's the research which Gleba unlocks. If you still use normal labs while playing the Space Age, you should stop immediately and replace them with biolabs. They consume half the science packs, making the research way cheaper, especially when combined with high quality productivity modules. Also, the stack inserters are the best thing since the invention of spaghetti carbonara. They can literally turn a yellow belt throughput into an equivalent of turbo belts from Vulcanus. Yeah, with not much extra cost you can quadruple your main bus throughput. So it's up to you to decide if you want to get to Gleba or not. And if you are crazy enough to get Glebed, just be over prepared for that trip. With all this knowledge, you might be able to survive a few seconds on Gleba, or even minutes. If not, then you should check out my 2 other things I wish I knew before playing Factorio videos, which will be also very useful for a Space Age journey. Of course, big thanks to my patrons and YouTube members who support my therapy session after coming back from Gleba. You guys are rock! What is